On a cold morning in occupied Oslo, a young woman stood next to her father on a crowded tram. They were strangers. He didn't recognize his own daughter, and she couldn't acknowledge him. One wrong word, one moment of weakness, and years of work would unravel. Worse still, people would die. This was the daily reality for Anne-Sofie Østvedt. At just 22 years old, she was second in command of Norway's most successful intelligence organization. 3,000 agents across southern Norway took orders from her. Only they didn't know it. To them, she was Aslak, a man's name, a ghost they'd never met. When the Gestapo came hunting in autumn 1942, Østvedt vanished. She erased herself so completely that even standing inches from her own father on that tram, she was invisible. This is her forgotten story. The 9th of April 1940, dawn breaks over Oslo. Anne-Sofie Østvedt is a 20-year-old chemistry student at the University of Oslo. By lunchtime, her country no longer exists. Operation Weser Airborne, Germany's lightning invasion of Norway, hits every major city simultaneously. Oslo, Bergen, Trondheim, Narvik, all attacked at once. The Luftwaffe fills the skies while paratroopers drop onto airfields around the capital. The heavy cruiser Blücher steams up Oslo Fjord, packed with troops and Gestapo officers. Norwegian shore batteries open fire with everything they've got. 2 direct hits. The ship burns, rolls over, and sinks into the cold waters of the fjord. Over 1,000 Germans die in minutes. This buys King Haakon VII and his government just enough time to escape north with the gold reserves. Eventually they reach London and establish a government in exile. But Norway falls anyway. By the 10th of June 1940, all military resistance has ceased. Vidkun Quisling, whose name would become synonymous with the word treasure, attempts to seize power for the Nazis. German Reichskommissar Josef Terboven takes control, and the occupation begins. And it's brutal. 1 German soldier for every 8 Norwegians, the most heavily fortified occupation in all of Europe. Most young Norwegians hoped things would somehow return to normal despite the occupation. Not Østvedt. Within months, she's writing and distributing underground newspapers across Oslo. This is dangerous work. Reading these papers becomes a capital crime by October 1942. Over 60 people will be executed for involvement in underground publishing. 150 more die in concentration camps. But the underground press serves a vital purpose for Norwegian resistance. Radios are confiscated or made illegal, so the papers distribute BBC News and counter-Nazi propaganda. They publish messages from King Haakon in London and keep Norwegian identity alive under German occupation. And they bring Østvedt to the attention of someone very important in the nascent resistance movement. July 1940. A new organization forms in Oslo. Its name is XU, X for unknown, U for undercover agent. Founded by Laurits Sand, who'd worked for British intelligence in the Dutch East Indies. He knows how to build a spy network that can survive Gestapo scrutiny. By autumn, they're recruiting heavily from the University of Oslo. Chemistry students, engineers, people with scientific minds who can memorize maps, take detailed notes, spot patterns in German movements. Young people the Germans might overlook as harmless students. This is where XU finds its strength. XU is unlike most resistance groups. They don't blow things up or ambush patrols. They watch, they record, they remember every detail. German troops moving through a railway station. XU notes the unit markings, the equipment, the direction they're heading. It all goes into the reports. Fortifications being built on the coast. XU sketches them with precise measurements. Supply depots, ammunition dumps, command posts. Nothing escapes their attention. This intelligence flows through a sophisticated courier system across the Swedish border, then on to London. British intelligence gets detailed, accurate information about every German unit in Norway. And the Germans have no idea XU even exists. The organization uses strict cell structure, Most operatives don't even know XU's name. They know one contact person, maybe two. That's it. Information flows up and down through anonymous dead drops and coded messages. One famous case: two XU operatives who'd worked together for years finally met after the war ended. During the entire occupation, they'd only recognized each other by their shoes during brief encounters. Turned out they were close friends outside the network and had never known it. December 1941. ZU recruits Anne-Sofie Østvedt. She's 21 years old. Her work on underground newspapers proved her reliability and courage under pressure. Her chemistry background gives her the analytical mind they need for intelligence work. And she's got something else: the ability to disappear in plain sight. She rises fast through the organization. By spring 1942, the Gestapo becomes aware that XU exists. They don't know what it is, who runs it, or where the leaders are hiding. But they know it's dangerous, and they know it's feeding intelligence to London. Operations begin to identify and arrest the leadership. In July 1942, several Oslo cell leaders flee to Sweden to escape the dragnet. Arvid Storsveen, one of the founding members, sets up headquarters there. He'll continue moving in and out of Norway for months, coordinating operations from across the border. In April 1943, the Gestapo finally catches him in Oslo. They kill him during the arrest in a firefight. He never talks under torture, never reveals his role in XU, never gives up a single name to his interrogators. This is the kind of discipline that keeps XU alive. This creates a dangerous vacuum. Who's going to run XU now? The organization is at its most vulnerable point. One more arrest, one person breaking under torture, and the whole network collapses. 3,000 agents exposed. Years of work destroyed. The Gestapo victory would be complete. Enter Øystein Strømnes. He's young, brilliant, and brave enough to take command of XU from occupied Oslo itself. And he needs someone he can trust absolutely. Someone who can run the entire southern network when he's traveling or meeting contacts. Someone who won't break under pressure. He chooses Østvedt. At 22, she becomes second in command, deputy commander of approximately 3,000 intelligence agents spread across southern Norway. Most of them have no idea who she is. They certainly don't know she's a woman in her early 20s. To them, she's Aslak, a code name, a male name that conceals her identity. Orders come from Aslak. Intelligence flows to Aslak. But nobody meets Aslak face to face. The system works because everyone follows the rules of compartmentalization without question. And then the Gestapo comes for her. Autumn 1942. Someone talks. Not deliberately, perhaps under torture, perhaps they let something slip during an interrogation. But the Gestapo now has a name. Anne-Sofie Østvedt. They know she's involved in something big. They move fast. 45 Gestapo officers surround her apartment building in a massive operation. All entrances blocked, all staircases guarded. The apartment itself is under watch. They're taking no chances. This is the largest single operation against a suspected resistance member in months. But she's not there. Someone warned her, minutes, maybe an hour before the raid. She grabs nothing, leaves everything behind. Her books, her clothes, her entire life, as Anne-Sofie Østvedt ends in an instant. She walks out into occupied Oslo and disappears completely. What follows is extraordinary. For the next 2.5 years, until the war ends in May 1945, she lives under a completely false identity. She takes a new name, new papers, new background, new life story, and she maintains it flawlessly, never breaks character once. She's still running XU, still meeting contacts, receiving reports, sending information to Sweden through courier network. The pressure is unimaginable, yet she never slips. The loneliness is crushing. She can't contact her family, can't tell friends she's alive. Can't go anywhere familiar or meet anyone from her old life. One person recognizing her could destroy everything. 3,000 agents would be exposed. The entire network would collapse. And then it happens. That moment on the tram. Her father boards one morning and stands right next to her in the crowded car. She recognizes him instantly. Does he see something familiar in her face? A gesture? The way she stands or holds herself? Nothing. He has no idea. She's become so thoroughly someone else that even her own father doesn't know her. This is the price of her secret. This is what command costs when you're invisible. The moment passes, and they remain strangers. Meanwhile, XU is producing intelligence at an astonishing rate. By war's end, they're generating approximately 500 pages of detailed reports every single day. Troop movements, fortification plans, supply routes, naval deployments, aircraft positions, everything the Allies need to maintain pressure on German forces in Norway. This intelligence proves vital for Allied strategic bombing raids. It would have been invaluable if an invasion had been necessary. And perhaps most importantly, XU members serve as couriers for MI-5 agent Paul Rosball, who's inside Nazi Germany's nuclear weapons program, feeding information to the British. Rosball provides vital information about German atomic research. The intelligence he supplies, smuggled out through XU's courier network into Sweden and then to London, helps the Allies understand that the Germans are nowhere near building an atomic bomb. This information affects Allied strategic planning at the highest levels. And the Gestapo still doesn't understand what XU is or how it operates. After the war, captured Gestapo documents reveal they had virtually no intelligence on the organization. No membership lists, no organizational structure. No real idea of its size or scope or capabilities. XU never loses an agent to betrayal during the entire war. The cell structure holds. 1,500 agents by war's end, operating across Norway. Norway's most successful intelligence organization, and the Gestapo never came close to cracking it. That's the measure of how well Østvedt and Strømnes ran the operation. The 8th of May, 1945, Germany surrenders. Norway is free after 5 years of brutal occupation. For Østvedt, the relief must be overwhelming. 2.5 years of constant fear, constant vigilance, never being able to relax, never being able to be herself around anyone. Now she can come out of hiding, resume her real identity, see her family and tell them she's alive, explain where she's been, what she's been doing. And here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. After the war, many XU members meet for the first time without disguises or codenames. They finally learn who they've been working with, who gave them orders, who ran the show from occupied Oslo. For hundreds of XU operatives, it's a shock. Their commander, Aslak, the person who coordinated operations across southern Norway, was a woman in her early 20s. Some accounts suggest certain male subordinates had difficulty accepting this. They'd taken orders from someone they assumed was a man. Finding out otherwise challenged their assumptions about leadership, about gender, about what women could do during wartime. It didn't fit their expectations at all. But the facts spoke for themselves. Under Østvedt and Strømnes, XU had been devastatingly effective. The organization had never been compromised. The intelligence had been first-rate. The results were undeniable, regardless of anyone's preconceptions about female commanders. In summer 1945, she travels to the University of California, Berkeley, to study chemistry, to finally complete what the war interrupted 5 years earlier. Also at Berkeley, studying on a similar fellowship, is Øystein Strømnes, her former commander, the man who trusted her with XU's future. They marry and build a life together in America for several years, return to Norway in 1951 and settle into civilian life. And here's the remarkable thing. Despite her extraordinary wartime service, Østvedt refuses all decorations, all honors, all public recognition. The Norwegian government wanted to award her medals for her service. She declined. Colleagues suggested commemorations and public acknowledgement. She refused. For 64 years after the war, she lived quietly in Norway without seeking or accepting recognition for what she'd done. Why did she refuse recognition? Perhaps because true leadership doesn't need medals or public acknowledgement. Perhaps because her service had already cost her enough, her youth, her education, 2.5 years of her life living as someone else. She'd given enough already. Or perhaps because she understood something fundamental about intelligence work, that the best intelligence work is invisible, that the most effective commanders are the ones nobody knows about. She'd spent the war being Aslak, a name, a ghost. Maybe she wanted to stay that way. XU itself remained classified for decades after the war. Its existence wasn't revealed to the Norwegian public until around 1980. By then, many members were elderly. Some had already died. The secrecy had served a purpose during the Cold War, but it also created problems. Some XU members were convicted as collaborators during post-war treason trials. They couldn't reveal their true work without breaking official secrets. Double agents, sworn to secrecy, were branded as traitors. Their names were only cleared after 1980, when the truth finally came out. By 2006, nearly all XU documents were declassified and released to historians. Historians could finally tell the full story without restrictions, and that's when Østvedt's role became completely clear to the public. The scope of what she'd done, the responsibility she'd carried, the risks she'd taken. She died on the 16th of November, 2009, age 89, in Sand, Norway. Her obituary was brief. It mentioned her work with XU, her marriage to Strongnass, her life as a chemist after the war, but it couldn't capture what she'd really done. At 21, while most people her age were students or starting careers, she was commanding intelligence operations across half of Norway, living a double life, running agents, coordinating with British intelligence, all while the Gestapo hunted her with 45 officers and unlimited resources. She stood next to her father on a tram, and he didn't recognize her. That's not just good tradecraft. That's complete self-erasure. That's becoming someone else so thoroughly that even love can't penetrate the disguise. And she never broke. Not once in 2.5 years. Think about that for a moment. Every conversation a potential trap. Every familiar face a risk. Every knock on the door possibly the Gestapo. For 900 days. Most people couldn't handle 9 days of that pressure, let alone 900. Østvedt handled it for the duration of the war. Her story challenges our assumptions about heroism. We think of war heroes as people who charge machine gun nests or fly dangerous missions, people who do dramatic, visible things that get written up in newspapers and commemorated with monuments. But sometimes the hardest heroism is invisible. It's the courier who walks past German checkpoints with microfilm hidden in a lipstick tube. The radio operator who sends messages knowing direction-finding equipment is closing in on their position. The resistance member who maintains a cover identity so perfectly that their own family doesn't know them. It's the young woman who commands thousands of men and never tells a soul. Østvedt's story also highlights something historians have only recently begun to document thoroughly. Women's contributions to World War II resistance movements were systematically underreported for decades. The narratives focused on men. Male commanders, male saboteurs, male heroes. Women were mentioned as couriers, nurses, support staff. Important roles certainly, but rarely leadership positions. Yet throughout occupied Europe, women held crucial command positions. They ran networks, coordinated operations, made life and death decisions daily. The secrecy surrounding organizations like XU made women even more invisible. It's taken decades for the full story to emerge, and even now, we probably don't know all of it. The fact that the Gestapo never cracked the organization, never identified most of its members, never understood its true size or capabilities. That was her legacy. Intelligence over violence, brain over brawn, patience over action. These were the principles that guided XU under her leadership, and they worked brilliantly. The loneliness, the discipline, the absolute commitment to a cause larger than herself. She gave up her identity to protect her country, and when the war ended, she quietly rebuilt her life without demanding recognition for what she'd sacrificed. That's leadership. That's service. That's heroism in its purest form. Invisible, undeniable, unforgotten.